At 7:14 on my 72nd birthday, my son told me to stop calling him. My daughter agreed. I was sitting at a table set for three, staring at two empty chairs and the chocolate cake Margaret used to bake before she died. I thought loneliness would be the worst thing my children gave me that night. Before midnight, I'd discover they had taken more than my trust from me. Please, before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments where you are listening from today. My name is Walter Bennett. I spent 41 years as a civil engineer designing structures meant to survive storms. At 72, I was noticing cracks inside my own family. Brandon, my son, promised dinner. My daughter Olivia said she would bring wine. At 7, neither had arrived. I called Brandon. No answer. Olivia sent me to voicemail. Then Brandon called back. Music and laughter filled the background. "Dad, we're having dinner." "Dinner was supposed to be here," he sighed. Olivia and I changed plans. "Tonight? Please don't make this dramatic." I looked at Margaret's recipe card. "It's my birthday, Brandon." "You're 72, Dad." "Not 12. Then Olivia came onto the phone. "This is the problem. Every birthday, holiday, every Sunday call you expect us to arrange our lives around you. I asked for one dinner. You ask for attention." She said, "There's a difference," Brandon added. "We have our own lives. We can't keep answering every time you're lonely." Something inside me went still. Is that what I am now? A lonely old man bothering you? "That's not what I meant," Olivia cut in. "Dad, just stop calling us for a while. Let us live our own lives." I heard glasses clink. My children were celebrating while asking me to disappear. "How long is a while?" Neither answered. Finally, Brandon said, "We'll call when we need to talk." Need, not want. Need. I looked at Margaret's photograph. During her final year, she had warned me. "Walter, you solve every problem before they feel its weight. One day they'll mistake your help for something they're owed." I had argued that parents should help. She replied, "Help them stand. Don't become the ground beneath their feet." That night, I wondered if Margaret had seen the fracture long before I did. "All right," I said. Brandon sounded relieved. "Good. We'll talk later." "No. You said you'll call when you need me. I heard you." "Dad," Olivia began. "Enjoy your dinner." I ended the call. I blew out the candles and ate one piece of cake alone. At 8:31, I went to my study looking for Margaret's last birthday card. Instead, I found the folder containing the transfers I had been making to my children. $12,000 every month. Brandon's startup. Olivia's mortgage and club fees. They wanted independence while I financed it. I stared at the statements. Then maybe it's time I stopped paying for those lives. Then I noticed a document I didn't remember signing. It carried my name and the address of Bennett Ridge Estate. At the bottom was a digital signature resembling mine. I read it twice. It described property I owned as collateral for a commercial loan. My pulse slowed like it did when an inspection revealed hidden structural failure. I hadn't applied for any commercial loan. I hadn't authorized my land. And yet there was my name, my property, my signature. At the top of the document was a number large enough to turn a cruel birthday call into something else entirely. $500,000. $500,000. I read the number a third time, then forced myself to stop thinking like a father and start thinking like the engineer I'd been for 41 years. When a bridge showed a crack, you didn't argue with the crack. You traced the load. I opened the loan file from the beginning. The borrower was listed as BBN Growth Ventures LLC. I didn't recognize the company, but the guarantor page carried my full legal name, Walter James Bennett. The collateral description identified 11 acres along the eastern boundary of Bennett Ridge Estate, my land. Beneath it sat a digital signature that looked almost perfect. Almost. I had signed thousands of engineering contracts in my career. My final T always leaned slightly left because of an old wrist injury. This one leaned right. I checked the date. 3 weeks earlier, I had been in Denver attending a memorial for a former colleague. I hadn't signed anything. My first instinct was to call Brandon. My second was to call Olivia. Margaret's voice stopped me. "Don't solve the problem before you understand it." So I kept reading. The loan proceeds were scheduled to fund digital expansion, property acquisition, and operating liquidity. Digital expansion sounded like Brandon. Property acquisition sounded like Olivia. That could have been coincidence. Then I reached the contact page. BBN Growth Ventures used the same downtown business address as Brandon's marketing startup. My mouth went dry. I searched the state corporate database. BBN Growth Ventures had been formed 4 months earlier. The registered organizer was a law office I didn't recognize. The mailing contact was Brandon Bennett. I sat back. No. I wanted another explanation. Maybe Brandon had prepared paperwork and intended to ask me later. Maybe my name had been inserted as a placeholder. Then I found an appraisal attachment. Olivia Bennett, luxury residential broker, had supplied comparable land values used to support the collateral estimate. Both of my children were inside the same file. I printed every page. The printer sounded unbearably loud in the empty house. At 9:26, I logged into the lender portal using the reference number. A verification history appeared. According to the system, I had confirmed the transaction at 2:13 p.m. On a Tuesday. The authentication code had been sent to a phone number ending in 4,418. Mine ended in 7,306. I searched my contacts. 4,418. Belonged to Brandon's office manager. My hands became cold. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Someone had redirected the verification process away from me. I checked my email archive and found 3 automated notices from the lender, all marked as read even though I had never opened them. A forwarding rule had been created inside my account, sending messages containing the lender's name to an unfamiliar address before moving them into an archive folder. I changed my password immediately and photographed the settings with my phone. Then I looked at the birthday table through the study doorway. 2 empty chairs, $12,000 a month. Stop calling us. Suddenly the sentence sounded different. They wanted distance from me while remaining close to everything I owned. At 10:04, I found the preliminary funding schedule. The loan had not been fully released yet. Final disbursement was scheduled for Friday morning. That meant I still had time. I created 3 folders: loan documents, digital access, and family transfers. I copied everything to an external drive and placed it in the fireproof safe Margaret had insisted we buy years earlier. Only then did I allow myself to feel what the documents meant. Brandon had sat at my kitchen table 2 months earlier and told me his startup was finally turning the corner. Olivia had hugged me after Christmas and said business was better than ever. Meanwhile, I had been paying their bills. Now my land was apparently being used to secure $500,000 without my permission. I didn't know yet who had created the false signature. I didn't know who had changed my email settings, but I knew enough not to confront anyone before protecting the evidence. At 10:37, I called Jonathan Mercer. He had handled my estate planning and commercial matters for nearly 20 years. "Walter?" he answered. "Happy birthday, old friend. Jonathan, I need you to look at something." My voice must have changed because his did too. "What happened?" "There's a $500,000 commercial loan secured by my property. I didn't authorize it." Silence. "Do you have the documents?" "Every page." "Any indication who benefits?" I looked at Brandon's name, then Olivia's appraisal. "My children." Jonathan stopped me before I could say anything else. "Walter, listen carefully. Don't call Brandon. Don't call Olivia. Don't warn either of them. Preserve everything exactly as you found it." "Jonathan, are you saying what I think you're saying?" His answer was quiet. "I'm saying someone may have committed fraud, and if your children are involved, tomorrow morning we stop treating this like a family disagreement." At 8:05 the next morning, Jonathan Mercer locked his office door, spread my documents across a conference table, and stopped treating me like a birthday guest. He read the loan agreement twice, examined the digital signature, then studied the authentication history. "Walter, this is worse than I expected. Can you stop the money?" "Yes. The lender hasn't completed disbursement. I'll send an emergency fraud notice and preservation demand this morning." "Do it." He looked at me over his glasses. "Once we challenge the signature, they may refer this to investigators." "I understand. If Brandon or Olivia participated, you may not control what happens next." That was the first moment my resolve weakened. They were still my children. I remembered Brandon asleep on my chest at 4 months old, and Olivia gripping my finger on her first day of school. I don't want them arrested because they're selfish. Neither do I. But selfishness and fraud are different structures. Jonathan tapped the forged signature. You taught me that foundations matter. This foundation is false. I almost smiled. Using engineering against me now? Whatever works. I walked to the window. Protect the property first. Preserve the evidence. Don't pursue criminal action unless we have to. That's reasonable. Then Jonathan opened another folder. Now we deal with the part you can control. He had reviewed my recurring transfers. $6,000 a month went toward Brandon's business expenses and personal obligations. Another $6,000 covered Olivia's mortgage shortfall, vehicle lease, club dues, and revolving debt. $12,000 every month, Jonathan said. $144,000 a year. I've been doing it so long I stopped adding it up. Do they know the full amount? They know when a payment doesn't arrive. Jonathan leaned back. And last night they told you to stop calling. They said they wanted their own lives. What do you want? I thought about Margaret. Help them stand. Don't become the ground beneath their feet. I want to believe them. Meaning, end every voluntary payment. Jonathan studied me. All of them? All of them. Brandon's company. Olivia's mortgage, the club, cars, credit cards. Everything that belongs to adults who asked me to leave them alone. That's not retaliation, Walter. I know. Say it anyway. I met his eyes. I'm not taking anything from them. I'm stopping what I was giving. Good. By 9:42, the recurring transfers were canceled. Jonathan then asked me to open my estate portfolio. There's another problem. Your children may believe Bennett Ridge is the bulk of your wealth. They've always assumed that. And you've never corrected them. Margaret and I preferred privacy. Jonathan turned the screen toward me. Over 30 years, I had quietly acquired adjoining parcels whenever neighboring owners wanted to sell. Some were held directly. Others sat inside investment entities created during my consulting years. Together, my interests covered nearly 50 acres surrounding the original estate. A commercial developer had recently valued the combined holdings in the millions. Brandon thinks you own an old house and 15 acres, Jonathan said. Olivia's appraisal for the loan only references the visible estate parcel. Meaning they may have tried to leverage property without understanding what you actually control. I felt no satisfaction. Only sadness. They know what they expect to inherit better than they know me. Jonathan closed the portfolio. Then we should revisit the estate plan. That sentence hurt more than canceling the money. Margaret and I had once planned to divide nearly everything equally between Brandon and Olivia. Can we protect the assets while I decide what happens later? Yes. We can restructure access, revoke outdated authorizations, and move key holdings into a trust structure they cannot touch. Do it. Walter, once we begin, they'll notice. They asked for distance. Distance is easy when the checks keep arriving. He slid my phone toward me. When Friday's money doesn't appear, you'll learn whether they miss their father or their funding. I looked at the screen. No calls, no apologies, nothing from either child. Jonathan gathered the fraud documents into his briefcase. Enjoy the silence while it lasts. You think they'll come after me? I think people reveal what they value when access disappears. He stood. And by Friday morning, Brandon and Olivia are going to discover that the man they told to stop calling has finally stopped paying too. By Thursday afternoon, Bennett Ridge no longer felt like the home my children remembered. Victor Hayes stood beside me while technicians installed a steel gate across the driveway. Once this is active, nobody enters without authorization, he said. He didn't ask why I suddenly wanted cameras and biometric locks. He only asked, who still has access? Jonathan. Me. No one else. Your children? I looked toward the lawn where Brandon and Olivia once raced bicycles. Especially not my children. Victor removed their old gate codes. The confirmation tone hurt more than I expected. I wasn't locking out strangers. I was closing a door my children had always assumed would open for them. Inside, I found one of Margaret's notebooks. An entry written months before she died stopped me. Walter thinks rescuing them is love. I worry they are learning that consequences are emergencies their father will always pay to remove. She saw what I refused to see. Brandon's first business failed, and I paid the tax debt. Olivia once buried herself in credit card bills, and I cleared them. When Brandon missed payroll, I covered it. When Olivia wanted a more expensive house because clients judged appearances, I helped with the down payment. Every rescue had sounded reasonable by itself. Together, they had become a system. I had spent my career designing structures so no single support carried too much weight. Yet inside my family, I had made myself the column holding everything up. Margaret warned me what happened when people stopped seeing the column. They began believing the roof floated by itself. My phone buzzed. Brandon, Dad, did you change something with the business transfer? Then Olivia texted, my card payment didn't process. Call me ASAP. No apology. Only money. The silence in the house suddenly felt different to me now. I placed the phone face down. Victor entered. Exterior cameras are live. We found an old family access profile too. Delete it. Done. Do you expect trouble? I expect disappointment. I'm learning those can look similar. At sunset, Jonathan called. The lender froze the $500,000 loan. No funds will be released. Good. The applicants will probably receive notice tomorrow, so they'll know. Yes. And once the monthly transfers fail, they'll know that too. I looked through the window at the new gate. Then they'll come here. Don't meet them alone if they're angry. That's why Victor is here. That night I walked through Bennett Ridge, checking doors I had never bothered to lock when my children were young. Their height marks were still penciled inside the pantry frame. Olivia at 8. Brandon at 11. Margaret had refused to paint over them. I touched the marks and felt the temptation to undo everything. One call could restore the transfers. One conversation could make the gate unnecessary. Then Brandon texted, whatever you did, fix it before Friday. Payroll depends on that money. Olivia followed, Dad, this isn't funny. My accounts are due tomorrow. They weren't asking whether I was hurt. They were demanding that the machines start working again. At 11:06, Victor sent me the final security report. Gate active, cameras active, family credentials revoked. I stood at the front window staring down the long driveway. For years, Margaret had asked me to let our children feel the weight of their own choices. I had always stepped between them and the fall. This time I stepped aside. Friday morning was coming, and for the first time in their adult lives, Brandon and Olivia were about to discover what their independence actually cost. At 8:02 Friday morning, Brandon discovered what independence cost when his payroll account rejected the transfer. At 8:17, Olivia's card was declined at the country club she used as proof that she belonged there. By 9, both of my children were calling me as if Wednesday night's words had never been spoken. I sat at my kitchen table while Brandon's name appeared for the 7th time. His voicemail came seconds later. Dad, the transfer didn't arrive. Payroll runs today. Call me immediately. Not hello. Not I'm sorry about your birthday. Immediately. Olivia texted next. Dad, my club payment was declined. Fix this. Brandon's digital marketing startup employed 23 people and had little operating cash. For months, my $6,000 transfers had covered the gap between the successful company he described and the struggling company he actually ran. His finance manager said payroll could not clear. His bank rejected a short-term credit request after seeing the $500,000 loan flagged for suspected fraud. Sabrina called him. Why is our mortgage account short? My father stopped the transfer. Then call him. He isn't answering. Go to his house. Olivia was discovering the same truth. Her SUV payment was due and 2 cards were near their limits. Nathan called after seeing their joint account. What happened to Walter's money? He stopped the transfers. Why? Because of the birthday dinner. You told the man funding this house to stop calling you. Brandon said it first. And you agreed. For years, my children had described my help as temporary and irrelevant. It took one morning without it for their lives to start shaking. At 10:11, Jonathan called. The loan remains frozen pending fraud review. The applicants were notified at 9:36. My phone immediately lit up. Brandon, Dad, did you report the loan? We need to talk before you make accusations you don't understand. Olivia followed. You are putting all of us at risk. Stop acting irrationally. I read both to Jonathan. Interesting, he said. Neither asked which loan. At noon, Brandon left another voicemail. Dad, please. I have employees with families. If payroll fails, innocent people get hurt. Should I help them? I asked Jonathan. Ask whether you'd be helping 23 employees or protecting Brandon from the reality of his business. At 1:40, Olivia called from a number I didn't recognize. Dad? Finally. What are you doing? Living my own life. My payments are failing. Brandon can't make payroll and somebody froze the business loan. Somebody? Silence. You know what I mean. Nathan's voice sounded behind her. Give me the phone. I ended the call. His text arrived seconds later. Walter, open the accounts and we'll come discuss everything like adults. By 3, Brandon had delayed payroll. None of them were poor. They were simply facing bills without me standing between them and the due date. Their panic was not about losing me. It was about losing support they assumed was permanent. At 4:18, Victor Hayes called from the security office. Mr. Bennett, a black Range Rover and a silver Mercedes just turned onto the county road. Who? Your son is driving the Range Rover. Your daughter is behind him. Passengers in both. How long? 3 minutes. Do you want it opened? My phone rang again. Brandon, then Olivia, then Nathan. I remembered Wednesday night. Stop calling us. We have our own lives. No, Victor. Keep it closed. 2 vehicles appeared beyond the trees and accelerated toward Bennett Ridge. Brandon's final message contained 6 words. Dad, we're coming in. Open up. I walked toward the security monitor. For the first time in their lives, my children were about to learn that being family and having access were no longer the same thing. At 4:21 Friday afternoon, Brandon's Range Rover stopped inches from my new steel gate. Olivia's Mercedes pulled in behind him. I watched the security monitor as Brandon, Sabrina, Olivia, and Nathan climbed out. My son entered the gate code he had used for years. Red light. He tried again. Red. Dad, he shouted toward the camera. Open the gate. Victor Hayes stood beside me. Want me to handle it? Not yet. Brandon grabbed the bars. Olivia looked directly at the camera. Dad, this is ridiculous. We need to talk. Nathan stepped forward. Walter, we're family. Stop playing games. My phone started ringing. I let it. Brandon shouted. My employees didn't get paid today because of you. I pressed the intercom. Because of me? All 4 froze. Dad, Brandon said, suddenly calmer. Open up and we'll explain. Explain what? Everything. Start with the $500,000 loan. Silence. Olivia looked at Brandon. Sabrina looked confused. What loan? She asked. Brandon ignored her. Dad, there are documents you don't understand. I reviewed engineering contracts for 41 years. I understand when I didn't sign my own name. Olivia stepped toward the speaker. Nobody stole anything. It was a financing strategy. Using my land without asking me? The loan would have been repaid. That wasn't my question. Nathan cut in. Everyone benefits if Brandon's company grows. You're reacting emotionally because of one missed dinner. The dinner where my children told me to stop calling? Olivia snapped. You're proving why we needed space. Even outside my gate, she still believed my reaction was the problem. Then take the space you asked for. Brandon slammed his hand against the steel. You can't do this. I'm your son. Yes. Then let me in. Being my son doesn't give you permanent access to my property. Nathan pointed toward the camera. You suddenly freeze accounts, hire security, and accuse your children of crimes. Do you hear how unstable that sounds? Victor looked at me. That sounded rehearsed. Record everything. Already am. Brandon tried again. Dad, I'm sorry about the birthday. I was stressed. Now please restore the transfer so I can make payroll. Is that your apology? What do you want me to say? Nothing you need me to write for you, Olivia shouted. My mortgage is due Monday. Then pay your mortgage. With what? The words escaped before she could stop them. With what? 3 words explained years of mistakes. My children had built adult lives on money they pretended they didn't need. Brandon leaned toward the gate. If my company collapses, you'll lose everything you've invested. Then I lose it. His expression changed. Fear wasn't going to move me this time. Nathan grabbed the bars. We can challenge this. You can't cut off your children and hide behind armed security while pretending you're mentally competent. The words hung there. Victor turned toward me. Mentally competent? Nathan stepped back. Olivia whispered something to him, then began typing on her phone. That wasn't anger. It looked like preparation. Last chance, Dad. Brandon said. Open the gate. I looked at Margaret's photograph beside the monitor. For years, I had opened every door before my children even knocked. Not this one. You told me to stop calling because you had your own lives, I said. I listened. The money stopped, the access stopped, and now this conversation stops. Dad, Olivia screamed. You wanted me to live on my own. I took your advice. Goodbye. I switched off the intercom. Brandon kicked the gate. Victor's security team approached from inside the property, and after several minutes, all four returned to their cars. But Nathan didn't look defeated. He was speaking rapidly while Olivia typed. Jonathan called before they reached the highway. Walter, I just received an alert from the county filing system. What kind? His voice hardened. Your children aren't trying to get through your gate anymore. I watched their taillights disappear. Then what are they trying to get through? The court. The court? I asked. Jonathan's answer came immediately. Brandon and Olivia filed an emergency petition for conservatorship. For a moment, I thought I had misheard him. Over me? They claim you're showing signs of cognitive decline and making irrational financial decisions. I looked toward the gate where their cars had disappeared minutes earlier. Irrational because I stopped paying their bills. That's part of their argument. Jonathan emailed me the filing. I opened it at the kitchen table. The first paragraph described two deeply concerned adult children watching their elderly father become increasingly isolated, suspicious, and financially unstable. The second accused Jonathan of exercising improper influence over me. They blamed you. I expected that. They say I suddenly cut off family, installed extreme security, froze accounts, and became obsessed with imagined fraud. Convenient wording. Then I reached Nathan's sworn statement. He claimed my behavior at the gate was confused, hostile, and inconsistent with Walter Bennett's historically rational personality. Olivia wrote that I had become unable to distinguish legitimate business arrangements from threats. Brandon claimed he feared I might irreversibly damage the estate through impulsive decisions. I stopped reading. They want my money. They want legal authority, Jonathan said. If granted broad powers, a conservator could gain influence over accounts, contracts, property, and litigation decisions, including the fraud claim. Exactly. The structure became clear. If I was declared incapable, the people connected to the disputed loan could gain power over how my property responded to it. Can they actually win? They can try. Age helps their narrative. So does the sudden security change. And the truth? The truth needs evidence. Jonathan told me not to contact them. By Saturday morning, he had arranged an independent evaluation with a geriatric neuropsychologist who had never treated me and had no connection to either side. I don't need a doctor to tell me I'm competent. No. But the judge needs evidence that doesn't come from you or me. I agreed. The evaluation lasted nearly 4 hours. Memory tests, financial reasoning, problem solving. Dates, numbers, sequences. At one point, the doctor placed a complex diagram in front of me and asked what was structurally wrong with it. I smiled. How much time do you have? Monday afternoon, Jonathan called. Your cognitive scores are excellent for your age. No evidence of impairment affecting financial or legal decision-making. Good. Better than good. Their central claim now has a serious problem. Then why do you sound worried? Because desperate people rarely stop when the first argument fails. We met that evening. Jonathan's conference table held 5 labeled binders: medical capacity, family transfers, estate records, digital evidence, commercial loan. You came prepared. So did they. He showed me the relief requested in the petition. Brandon and Olivia wanted temporary authority over major financial decisions, access to estate records, and removal of Jonathan as my attorney in matters involving family assets. There it is, I said. The gate wasn't enough. They want the keys. Jonathan nodded. But they made a mistake. What? He pointed to a paragraph stating that immediate intervention was necessary because my recent decisions threatened assets the children had long expected to form the core of their inheritance. I read it again. They actually wrote inheritance? Under oath. Jonathan opened another binder. Tomorrow, they will tell a judge this is about protecting you. We're going to ask why protecting you requires control of property they already describe as theirs. I looked at the briefcase beside his chair. And the loan? Not first. Why? Because good structures carry weight in sequence. We establish your competence, then their financial dependence, then motive. He rested his hand on the final binder. Only after they commit to their story do we show the court what happened to your signature. For the first time since my birthday, I understood why Jonathan had told me not to warn them. Brandon and Olivia believed Tuesday's hearing would be about whether an old man could still manage his life. They were wrong. It would be about why two independent adults needed a judge to hand them control of the father they had just told to disappear. Tuesday morning, Brandon and Olivia arrived at probate court dressed like children mourning a father who was still alive. When I entered beside Jonathan Mercer, all four looked at me with concern arranged for an audience. Judge Samuel Whitmore took the bench at 9-6. Brandon's attorney spoke first. Your Honor, this family is not asking to punish Mr. Bennett. They are asking to protect him. He described my age, the new security gate, canceled transfers, and my refusal to speak with my children. Brandon testified first. My father was always generous. Recently, he became suspicious and hostile. What changed? He accused us of financial wrongdoing and cut everyone off. Were you concerned for yourself? No. For him, Olivia followed. She said I had become isolated after Margaret died and vulnerable to Jonathan's influence. Their attorney asked for temporary control of my finances. Jonathan rose. Your Honor, Mr. Bennett has already undergone an independent neuropsychological evaluation. The evaluator found no cognitive impairment affecting his financial or legal decisions. Judge Whitmore read silently. Was this physician selected by your client? No. An independent specialist with no connection to either side. Do the petitioners have competing medical evidence? Not at this time, their attorney admitted. Jonathan nodded. Then let's examine why this petition was filed before anyone obtained evidence that my client lacked capacity. He called Brandon back. Your father transferred $6,000 to you monthly? Approximately. When those transfers stopped, your company failed to meet payroll? Temporarily. How soon afterward did you go to Bennett Ridge? That afternoon. Jonathan turned to Olivia. Did your father also provide you $6,000 monthly? He helped with expenses. Mortgage, vehicle, credit cards, country club dues. Yes, and you went to his property the day those payments stopped? Because we were worried. Jonathan lifted a page. Your first text said, my card payment didn't process. Fix this. Where is the concern for his health? I was upset. Understandably. $12,000 a month had disappeared. Brandon, is stopping voluntary gifts to employed adult children irrational? Not by itself. Changing locks on property he owns? Not by itself. Reporting a loan he says he never authorized? Brandon's jaw tightened. If he misunderstood it, we'll return to that. Jonathan displayed their petition. You asked for access to estate records because these assets were expected to form the core of your inheritance. Did you swear that was true? Yes. Jonathan faced the judge. My client is competent. The petitioners depended financially on him, filed immediately after he stopped funding them, and now seek control over property they already describe as their inheritance. That sequence concerns me. Their attorney rose. Mr. Bennett has made accusations without proof. Jonathan touched his briefcase. Then the court should see the proof. Jonathan opened the briefcase but left the thickest folder inside. First, 2 questions. He faced Brandon. Did Walter Bennett authorize you to use Bennett Ridge property as collateral for a $500,000 commercial loan? Brandon's face lost color. Then Jonathan turned to Olivia. Did your father authorize you to provide the valuation supporting that collateral? Their attorney whispered urgently. Judge Whitmore leaned forward. I want answers. Brandon swallowed. Dad knew I needed financing. That wasn't the question. Did he authorize the collateral? Not specifically. Jonathan faced Olivia. And the appraisal? Valuing property is my profession. Did Walter request it? No. Something changed in the judge's expression. Jonathan reached into the briefcase. Thank you. Now that both petitioners have committed to those answers, we're ready to show why Mr. Bennett froze the loan and why this conservatorship petition appeared immediately afterward. I watched my children stare at that briefcase. For the first time that morning, they no longer looked like people who had come to save me. They looked like people realizing the next document could expose exactly what they had tried to place under my name. Judge Whitmore looked at Jonathan's briefcase. "Proceed, Mr. Mercer." Jonathan removed a black folder and placed one document on the evidence screen. "This is the $500,000 loan agreement." Brandon stared straight ahead. Olivia's hands tightened in her lap. Jonathan enlarged the signature page. "Mr. Bennett, is that your name?" "Yes." "Is that your signature?" "No. That signature alone proves nothing," their attorney said. "Agreed," Jonathan replied. He displayed the authentication log. The lender required a one-time verification code. Walter Bennett's phone ends in 7306. The code used to approve this transaction was sent to a number ending in 4418. "Whose?" the judge asked. Jonathan turned to Brandon. "Your office managers." Brandon shifted. "Employees use those phones. Carrier records assigned that device to your executive office. At 2:13 p.m., the verification code was entered from an IP address registered to your company's office. My staff handles paperwork," Brandon said. "Are you saying an employee independently decided to pledge your father's land for your loan?" "I'm saying I didn't forge anything," Jonathan nodded. "Then let's examine the email." He showed the forwarding rule discovered in my account. Messages from the lender had been redirected to an address created 11 days before the application. Forensic review traced recovery credentials for that address to an account used by BBN Growth Ventures. Jonathan turned to her. "Miss Bennett, you testified that your father never requested your appraisal." "Correct. Yet your report states, prepared at owner's request for financing purposes." Silence. "Who told you the owner requested it?" Brandon said Dad knew about the financing. "So you never confirmed with Walter?" "No. But you certified that he requested the valuation?" "I relied on what I was told." "And the valuation increased the borrowing capacity?" "Yes." Jonathan turned to Brandon. "When did you learn your father froze the loan?" "Friday." "And when did you file for conservatorship?" "That evening. Less than 4 hours after he refused to reopen the gate. We were concerned. Concerned about his health, or concerned he could stop the transaction." Brandon's face hardened. "You don't understand what was at stake." Jonathan became still. "Explain." 23 employees. If the financing vanished, the company could collapse. "So you needed the money?" "Yes." "Enough to use property you did not own?" I said I didn't forge his signature. "But you knew his property was being pledged?" A long pause. "Yes." I felt no triumph, only grief. Jonathan faced Judge Whitmore. "Your Honor, we are not asking this court to determine criminal liability today. That belongs elsewhere. We are asking the court to recognize the motive. Walter discovered an unauthorized transaction, stopped it, ended voluntary support, and protected his property. The people financially harmed by those decisions responded by asking this court to declare him incapable." "Mr. Bennett, do you wish to say anything?" I stood. "Yes. My children told me they wanted their own lives. I believed them. I stopped paying for those lives. Then I discovered my land inside a loan I never approved. I did what I would have done with a damaged bridge. Closed access until I knew whether it was safe. That isn't confusion. It's responsibility. I love my children. But love does not require me to surrender my signature, my property, or my mind so they can avoid consequences." Judge Whitmore looked down at the petition. "The independent medical evidence establishes capacity. The financial evidence establishes a substantial conflict of interest. The petition for emergency conservatorship is denied." The judge continued. "Records concerning the disputed loan and authentication process will be preserved for appropriate civil or criminal review." Outside the courtroom, Brandon caught up with me. "Dad, please. If investigators get this, I could lose everything." I stopped. "You already asked me to disappear once. I was angry, and when I stopped calling, you came for control." Olivia whispered, "What happens to us now?" Jonathan stood beside me. I looked at both of my children. "Now you get what you asked for." "What's that?" Brandon said. "Your own lives." I walked toward the courthouse doors, but Jonathan quietly touched my arm. "Walter, there's one more decision we need to make." About the loan? No. He glanced back at Brandon and Olivia. About what they still think they're going to inherit at last. 6 months after the hearing, I stood on the eastern hill of Bennett Ridge and watched survey stakes appear across land Brandon and Olivia once assumed would someday belong to them. Jonathan stood beside me holding the new estate documents. Last chance to change your mind. I'm not changing my mind. Most of the land, investment holdings, and future development income would pass into the Bennett Foundation for skilled trades and housing. The foundation would fund vocational training, engineering scholarships, and affordable housing for working families. Brandon and Olivia were removed as direct beneficiaries of the major assets. They'll say you're punishing them, Jonathan said. I'm not taking away something they earned. You've learned that sentence well. Cost me enough. The fraud investigation continued separately. I didn't ask Jonathan to make it disappear, and I didn't demand prosecutors destroy my children either. For once, I allowed facts to go wherever facts led. Brandon's startup didn't survive. He sold equipment, settled what debts he could, and accepted a sales position at a regional company where nobody cared that he once called himself a CEO. Olivia sold the Mercedes, resigned from Sterling Crest Country Club, and moved into a smaller townhouse. Her real estate license remained intact, but clients stopped arriving simply because she looked successful. She had to work for them. I heard most of this from Jonathan. I didn't call, neither did they. Then the foundation introduced me to Elijah Brooks, a 21-year-old civil engineering student working nights at a warehouse. His scholarship application contained no dramatic plea. When we met, I asked, "What do you need most?" I expected him to say money. "Experience," he replied. "I can study calculations. I want to understand how someone knows whether a structure will actually survive." I smiled. "By learning where the load goes." Soon Elijah was spending Saturdays with me reviewing old bridge plans. I paid his tuition through the foundation, but he still worked part-time. When I suggested he could reduce his hours, he said, "You've already opened the door, Mr. Bennett. I should walk through it myself." That sentence stayed with me. Margaret had spent years trying to teach me the difference between helping someone stand and becoming the ground beneath their feet. Elijah understood it without being told. On a cold Sunday in November, Victor called from the gate. "Mr. Bennett, Brandon, and Olivia are here." My chest tightened. "Are they alone?" "Yes." "Did they say what they want?" "To talk." I opened the gate. They entered without luxury cars, attorneys, or spouses. Brandon looked older. Olivia carried Margaret's recipe box. "We found this in storage," she said. "We thought you should have it." We sat at the same table where my 72nd birthday cake had waited for them. Brandon spoke first. "I'm not here to ask about the inheritance." "Good." Olivia looked down. "We thought your money was proof you loved us. When you stopped giving it, we decided something had to be wrong with you, because admitting the truth meant something was wrong with us." Brandon swallowed. "I knew the land was being used. I told myself I'd repay everything before you found out." "And if you had?" I asked. "It still would have been wrong." That was the first apology he'd given me without attaching a request. "I can't restore what you expected to inherit," I said. Olivia nodded. "We know. And I won't protect you from whatever happens with the loan investigation." Brandon's voice was quiet. "We know that too." I looked at Margaret's recipe box between us. "But if you're asking whether there's still room at this table, that's different." Olivia began to cry. "I didn't tell them everything was forgiven. Trust isn't rebuilt by one conversation any more than a bridge is repaired by painting over a crack." But I poured 3 cups of coffee. Sometimes rebuilding begins that simply. Later, after they left, I walked outside. Lights from the new training center glowed beyond the trees, and Elijah was inside studying structural drawings. I thought about everything Margaret and I had intended to leave our children: land, money, security. We believed inheritance meant making their lives easier. I finally understood legacy differently. Legacy isn't what your children receive when you die. It's what continues building after you're gone. Margaret had been right all along. Love should help people stand. It should never teach them that someone else will always carry their weight.